This is Coda Radio, episode 42 for March 25th, 2013. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode's brought to you by our two fine sponsors, GoDaddy.com and Ting.com. Tell you more about them as the show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Oh boy, it's Coda Radio, Donald.
It's a Dominic. Hello, Mr. Dominic.
That was supposed to be Mickey Mouse. Was that bad?
You just gotta. You know what you gotta do. What you gotta do is, and this is what a lot of people do. If you listen, is they announce who they are as part of the bit. So you're like, hello, and then you say the name, and then it's like, oh, that's that person. So then, then we always know, because otherwise, if you wear the suit, I can't tell, man. It's an audio show. It's not doing me any good.
Okay, I'm not wearing a giant Mickey Mouse suit. Let's just...
Oh, then why did I wear this Luigi suit? Did we cross our wires before the show? Because on the pre-show, I thought we decided we were going to wear costumes for this episode.
First of all, I thought you were going to wear a Bowser suit.
Well, that's going to be a surprise now. You ruined that. That's a surprise. You have to wait for that.
I'm ruining everything.
I don't think this is what people tune in for. Should we tell them what we're going to cover today?
I want to hear about Ting.
All right, we'll move on. So we do have two sponsors this week. Our first sponsor is Ting. Now, before we get to Ting, I want to let people know that we are going to cover a topic that Michael and I both realize we have some passion around, and it's really been inspired by Google this week, and that is when to kill something and how to kill it appropriately.
With a lightsaber.
There is some ways people out there kill their projects off that we don't necessarily agree with. So we'll cover that, plus we've got some feedback. But first, before we get to all of that, I would like to tell you about our first sponsor this week, and that is the wonderful people over at Ting.com. Ting.com is mobile that makes sense, my friends, and that's why I became a Ting customer. Did you know, Mr. Dominic, that I am rocking the Note 2? Did I tell you that?
I know you've been bragging about your Note 2 ever since you got Ting.
I mentioned that I have a Note 2. Did I mention that it rocks the Ting service and that my wireless service includes tethering and hotspot? Because Ting is awesome. Let me tell you about them. There are no contracts, no early termination fees, truly and completely contract-free. I love that. No bundling or ride-along services, which is awesome, and no overage charges or penalties. Plus, here's what I really love. Ting will credit you on unused service. If you use less than you thought you would, Ting drops you down to the level and hits you with the credit on your next bill. They have great rates, no overage penalties. Love Ting.com. And I've been playing around with my Note 2 as sort of like this tablet phone killer, like see if I can combine the two things into one. And I actually, it's a little big, but the battery life is phenomenal. And the fact that it's always got data, like see my Nexus, the Wi-Fi does kind of sometimes run into limitations. The fact that this guy always has data and that I can tether, so I can bring along all the Wi-Fi devices and they can play too, I absolutely love that. Do me a favor, go over to codaradio.ting.com. That'll take $25 off your device, or it gives you a $25 service credit. You can check out their coverage maps, see if they work in your area. If you've got good Sprint coverage, you're going to have great Ting coverage. And after you've looked at the coverage, go take a look at the plans. This is where Ting is really shaking things up. Mix and match as you need. Whatever you need. You need a lot of minutes? Go ahead. You don't need text? You need a lot of text? Change it. You don't have to get sucked into these one-style packages that a lot of the big companies make you sort of forcibly elect in. And, you want X amount of minutes, so you have to buy the package that comes with this and that. And if you want to add tethering, it's another $35 on top of the entire plan. None of that's an issue with Ting. So go check them out. When you take that $25 credit, too, it really makes it a fantastic deal. So go check out codaradio.ting.com and get yourself some mobile service that makes sense. I'm loving it. You'll love it. And thanks to Ting.com for sponsoring Coda Radio. All right, Mr. Dominic. So what do you say we get to the feedback before we get into the killing things and that kind of stuff? Because we got some good emails this week.
Let's do it. Let's holster our lightsabers for just a moment. All right, so Steven writes in asking, how do we feel about mobile websites packaged as native apps? I hate it with a fiery passion.
Ooh, I'll tell you what I hate even more is when I go to a mobile site and it constantly spams me that there is a
Yes,
app to
native.
download,
Yep.
and it's like sometimes like, oh, here's a great example. I was picking up Alan from the airport, for TechSnap 100,
Mhm.
and they have this cell phone parking lot, they call it, where you're waiting for the passenger to arrive. And when you go to this mobile parking lot, there's no real clear signs on how to actually get to the gate from this point. So I went to the website of the airport by Googling for cell phone parking lot directions to get to terminal. I found the link. I could see in the Google preview description everything I wanted to know. It gave me all the information. I click it that way. I could actually get the full address. I hit the page. I start to see it for half a second, and then I get this, you be using the mobile optimized version. Reloads the page, takes me back to the root of the website, so I lose everything I'm at. Doesn't offer me the same options. And then at the bottom it
Yep.
says, would you like to download our mobile app?
Yep.
It is awful.
Yeah, so that whole thing's annoying. I mean, when I download an app, I expect an app. When I go to a mobile web page, I expect a mobile web page. Or if I'm already on the desktop version, don't try to redirect me.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. So basically, do nothing, right?
Right, and the problem is like they're trying to fix a problem that the mobile web vendors, browser vendors, have already solved.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's annoying either way.
Now, his specific question was taking an app like an HTML5 site and bundling
Just
that up
wrapping
in,
it, yeah, and submitting it.
If you do that really well, do you really have that visceral of a reaction?
So yeah, right. Because what he's talking about isn't like developing a phone gap or accelerator app. He's talking about literally taking your website, putting a Java wrapper or an Objective C wrapper,
Yeah.
and submitting it as is.
So there's a WordPress plugin. Have you seen this that does this? Where you can take your WordPress site, you install this plugin, it generates this stuff on the back end, I don't know, and then you submit that as an app. And then from that point on, you just update the content on your website, and the content of the apps, once you run the app, the inside of it changes. It's basically just like a shell for your site. And it is awful. It is so awful. I looked at it briefly just as an experiment, and it was atrocious. But this is happening more and more where you just take the blogging platform will take everything that you're generating and bundle it up.
Yeah, so Camden correctly points out that Apple does have a rule barring you from wrapping your website and submitting it as an app.
Really? That's funny
They
because this
don't
WordPress
always
thing.
enforce it
Oh, okay.
because it's hard to tell, as websites become more applications where they. So if your site is just a blog, they're going to reject it out of hand. But if it actually does something, if it's like a calculator, it is technically an app.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the term they use is meaningful functionality. Thank you again, Camden. So it has to do something.
And that's just up to their interpretation of whatever that is.
Right, but there are obvious cases where, you've taken your WordPress, like you're suggesting, and you're submitting a WordPress blog as an application.
Probably why they created the rule.
But no, the rule's been there since the launch of the App Store.
Okay. Look at them, huh? Way of the future.
Yes. So Mike has a two-parter. He asks us, do we know BinPress? The answer is no.
Okay.
And is starting to have some reservations about open sourcing his code. Now, the second bit is what I found more interesting. But if you're curious, BinPress is a way to sell code modules to their developers.
Okay, I was going to say.
It's like a marketplace.
Yeah, exactly. And so
there's lots of stuff like this.
So this is like if you create a library to do something, you can go here to sell it?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of.
Now, what's interesting is his reservations re open sourcing.
What was it?
Well, I mean, there's been some high-profile cases, and we've talked about a few of them this month, where people have publicly, I won't say verbally abused, but how about we say shamed?
Like text me?
Yeah, well, like they nasty comments on coding GitHub, nasty comments to people on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes they're right that there's issues with the code. A lot of the times it's just that they stylistically don't like something the person did. And to me, this brings into the wider issue of how do you determine what is good code and what is bad code? Because you can definitely get in the case where, you can get like-minded developers to say your code is good.
Mm.
You can also get like-minded developers to say the code of someone else you don't like is bad.
Mm.
And it's a very subjective thing. I mean, there's some obvious things, buggy, broken, crashy code is bad. But a lot of these conflicts will come down to style.
I like the coffee sip or tea sip that adds some ambiance there.
Oh, my bad.
No, I like it.
My microphone arm is falling on me.
I know, I can
need,
hear the spring popping.
I'm trying to like. I don't know if I didn't set it up right today or what I did.
Sounds ghetto over there, man. Sounds ghetto over there. What's going on?
Broadcasting straight from the hood.
Gosh, I mean, so are you telling me that his reservation is that he's afraid of opening his code and then people will see it's bad and give him a hard time? Is
Yes.
that what his reservation is?
No, well, but
Like maybe he didn't follow the conventions of that community or what?
His reservation should be that the point of open sourcing code, for at least a commercial point of view, is to have a portfolio. But if you Google the person, there's a bunch of nasty marks in the code. That's not very productive. And this gets into.
So it sounds like the answer is just don't open source bad code if you can, right?
Well, the problem is if the code isn't really bad, but not into the style that someone would like.
Okay.
So it can get really weird. Perfect example: PhoneGap JavaScript often looks different than web JavaScript, right?
Sure.
So PhoneGap's app uses a global variable called the app variable, which would make a lot of other JavaScript developers cry. So a cursory look from a web JavaScript developer, they'd say, well, this is unprofessional. But that is the default way PhoneGap does it. And that is recommended by Adobe. So that's where you can get into a bit of a pissing match. And it's somebody's putting standards in the chat room. It's not just about standards, though, right? It could also be about formatting. I mean, people can nitpick on anything. But Mike, I'd say do it anyway. I mean, if you don't know how to be a tool, good time to learn.
Do it under a pseudonym.
No, do it under your name.
No,
if
I'm
people give you a hard time, just rip them, just attack.
Well, yeah, I mean, it honestly sounds like a lack of confidence, really, because
because the problem is,
if you have justifiable reasons, then defend yourself and state them. And if people are pragmatic and logical, they'll understand. Yeah, maybe.
Well, they won't.
Yeah.
I mean, the cases he's concerned about happened in the Ruby community, and a few, let's call them celebrities, just beat up on a young developer, a young lady, and it got really ugly really quick. And the problem is they didn't stay objective about we have issues with this method. They went to the person.
Yeah.
Right.
That's always a weak position to go to because it generally means you don't have
10,000. When you have 10,000 Twitter followers, it quickly turns into just a real beat up session.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand his concern.
I suppose.
All right, on that depressing note.
I don't know. I feel like that's overstating it a bit, but I haven't really experienced it myself. I've only seen it from the outside.
Well, I would definitely. I'll send you the links, and maybe you can post them in the show notes to what happened to this person in particular.
Oh no, in that case, yeah, no, I follow what you're saying with the dongle gate, yeah.
No, not. I'm not even talking about dongle gate.
Oh,
there was 3 before it 2 months ago, and it was about literally someone open sourced a module that someone Rails didn't like and had a little fit.
No, jeez.
Yeah.
Rails is probably, it sounds like the community where this is a little more common.
It depends. So, like, one thing is you're never,
Or I should say maybe Ruby. Yeah, Rails.
It depends on, also, if you're like a Java developer, no one's going to bother you, right? If you're a Microsoft developer, there's only one person I can think of in the community who's kind of a tool, but unless you're a name yourself, he's never going to even pay attention to you. But it's in the other more open source style communities where you might have a problem. But again, Mike, grow a backbone. Just do it.
Yeah.
Seriously, if they give you a hard time, I love Flame Wars. Even if I think your code sucks and I think you're an idiot, I'll go on your side because I'm bored. I love to argue.
I like that about you.
Yes, I'm very contrarian, I've been told.
Should we talk about Alex?
Poor Alex. Alex shared a video that I really liked.
Yeah, this high-performance JavaScript video here on the YouTube, right?
Yeah, now there's an intro in some language that doesn't equal English.
Yeah, okay.
I see. To be honest, it's a very good video. It's a little long, so you set some time aside.
This guy is like a talk that this guy is posted a video of here, right?
Yeah.
It is here. Here's a little. No, I don't hear anything from it. I think.
There
it is.
This in more detail. Point here, we're going to create an object. First, we set an X property on it.
There you go.
And then
you get a little idea. what it sounds like, and if you're watching the enhanced video feed version, you see kind of what it looks like. It's not anything that's going to be amazing, but very interesting topic. And right now, only 61 views. Aw. You guys go check this out. We'll have a link to this in the show notes. It was posted on the 16th.
It's actually very good. It's a good presentation. I'm surprised it hasn't done well.
Oh, it will. I'm sure it'll get a few more views now.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So Mike writes in. Now Mike is sad.
Not this Mike, but not you.
I'm always angry. I'm like the Hulk.
Right.
He's having some trouble with Android fragmentation. Unfortunately, he didn't realize the problem until he had already got the app on the Google Play Store.
Aw.
And we know how the users must have responded.
Here come the 1-stars.
Apparently, he's been inundated with 1-stars from users who are on certain Sprint phones.
Was it a Note 2?
I have no idea. Was it all you? Did you make like 20 Android accounts?
I tell you what, I go on some moonshine benders and then I just start one starring like no.
Chris is just buying apps just to really.
Yeah, you know, I have an account set aside and I fund it, and my Friday night entertainment is one vote naps because I got nothing better to do. Sometimes what I do just to screw with the developers is I write, really awesome app, does just what it says, 1-star.
Yes.
Not really. No, I'm so kidding.
Okie dokie then.
So did he say what kind of fragmentation issues he's running into? Or is he just passing
he had
along
a
the
theory
issue?
that I didn't share. Not because I think he's wrong, but because if it's not true, I don't want to confuse other people.
Huh. Well, so basically what ended up happening is it's not working as expected on some devices.
It's not working on a particular set of devices.
Yeah.
And he asked me how he could address this in the future. There are Android device labs you can pay to test on different devices.
Oh.
But depending on the product, you know, how much revenue the project has, if it's worth it, it may not be good business to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, especially if you're just getting started and you're not making money yet. And he's probably not making a ton of money if it's getting a bunch of 1-stars, so it's not going to be found in the marketplace very easily. Speaking of marketplaces, we have a link here to an Ubuntu phone app. Now, this must be using the new Qt Creator SDK bundle that they have with QML and all of that good stuff, right? This looks pretty fancy. It's
he said it's written in Python and QML. I did not understand that it was a phone app, though.
Oh, maybe it's not. I just assumed it was.
I think it's a desktop app.
Oh, okay. Well, it's new, and it's a Pomodoro app. You know what? It must be a desktop app, although it honestly looks like it would pretty much work on a touch device. Right.
It looks like scale right down, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like he wrote it with that intention. That's actually why I thought it was just from the UI. But so we've talked about the Pomodoro technique on the show quite a bit, and this is a timer for the. Gosh, it even. Are you sure it's not for touch? It must be for touch because it even has like side swipe motions and stuff like that. I'm watching the.
Oh, maybe it's for touch. I thought it was desktop.
I'm not sure, but it looks pretty sweet, and it kind of gives you an idea of there is a market for this platform for all kinds of stuff, and it doesn't have to be like these major, like Skype type applications. Right? I mean, this is valuable. I kind of like this. This looks really slick. I like all the little animations and transitions he has in here. Like when he clicks on a specific thing, when he's setting the time. Oh, this is slick, dude. This looks really good. That was Michael that sent that in? Was that? I didn't catch it.
That was Mikhail. He said it would be hard for me to pronounce. No,
you just... Here, let me... hold on. You ready? Let me
do it.
Okay, here we go. Miguel. No, wait. Miguel. There we go. That's not bad, right? Miguel.
Miguel? No.
No, Miguel.
Mikhail.
I don't know, man. You know, sometimes my mouth is just all about
business.
And so I...
Oh, no.
So I can, I get a little bit... sometimes I become a little bit of a curmudgeon. So you got to watch out.
All right, well...
And then it makes me feel like
He's a jackass.
Barack! Right in the middle of our show? Unbelievable. So anyways, great work, and you guys can go check that out. It is called Zegray? Zegray? That's the app.
Zegray.
We'll have a link to it in the show notes if you guys want to grab that for Ubuntu. Very nice. Well done, Miguel. All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, before we move on to the topic of how to gracefully kill things and how some people in the public right now are making some headlines by maybe not gracefully killing things or not giving things a proper chance. But before we get to that, I'd like to suggest that you give our sponsor a proper chance, and that is GoDaddy.com. That's right, folks. The GoDaddy. They are longtime supporters of the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. And then they were like, hey, you know what we like? Coda Radio. And you know what we'd like to do? Give you guys a nice Coda Radio promo. Now, GoDaddy.com, of course, the world's #1 domain name registrar. I don't even really need to tell you guys that because you probably already know that because you're smart internet people. So what GoDaddy wants to do, since they already know you know why you want to use them, because A, #1 domain name registrar, B, super easy to hand off your work, the domain, anything you have set up to a client, to a family member, or to delegate within different folders, and it's very, very handy for the type of work that a lot of our audience does. You already know that, though. So let me tell you what you can do. Use code $295 when you check out. That'll get you a .com for $2.95. That's outrageous. That is outrageous. I remember when a .com was thousands of freaking dollars. I remember thousands of dollars. So $295 in your face, everybody. Go use code $295 when you check out and get an outrageously great deal on .com. And that's probably only, I believe, I'm not positive, that might be expiring at the end of March. So go use that now because there's only a few days left. Coder 295 also supports the show. Let's GoDaddy know that you appreciate them supporting the Coder Radio program, and that's really appreciated on our end. So everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. Man, it's like a big appreciation hug. Go use Coder 295, and thanks to GoDaddy.com for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. All right, Mr. Dominic, so I think it's pretty obvious the announcement of the impending death of Google Reader is probably what spurred this discussion we're about to have. Would you agree?
I would say so, yes.
And how would you say you feel about how Google's handling the transition right now? Do you feel like this is understandable? This is just kind of what has to happen in product life cycles, or do you feel like they were irresponsible? The rumor is no one was working on it until it broke because they moved everybody to Google Plus. And how is that?
That's kind of how I feel. I mean, as soon as they announced it, I was quickly reminded of I think it was Eric Schmidt's "More Wood Behind Fewer Arrows," and I feel like there's only one arrow, and it's called Google Plus.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder though if it's. I worry that it's because they want to turn Google Plus into a source that people use to get news. Like, for example, right now, apps like Flipboard will pull Google Plus. They will pull Twitter, and then they will sort of build a content feed inside Flipboard for you. And Google Reader kind of gives the user control over that, where you specify the feeds, you go find them, whereas these social versions where it's based on popularity and reshare, they're a little easier to game for the companies in some sense. So there's an incentive there for you to sort of have less control over the content feeds that come into your reader. And there's more opportunity there for Google to promote stories, to potentially run maybe pro-Android stories over an anti-Android story, whatever. I mean, to me, I think there is some element of maybe just, well, this is just better for lots of business reasons here. And then I think in another way, there's an obvious decline in overall user base, and you have to kind of sit back and go, well, if nobody's really using it, maybe it is a little understandable, even if all the reasons combined I'm not too comfortable with.
The usage reason I think is the most valid reason, and I don't necessarily. So my take's a little different. I don't mind that they're getting rid of it.
Did you use it?
No. But it just kept reminding me that they're saying Google Plus is Google now, right? And I've been seeing this a lot. A lot of other products are being killed because they're not, quote, social. And this is where I'm getting a little worried.
Okay, tell me about this.
Because to me, the whole idea, like I used to use Google Reader and then I moved on to Instapaper and now Pocket. And they do serve a slightly different purpose, but I kind of curate. I even go a level down, right? I might read certain authors on certain sites, not the whole site.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Perfect example, MJ Siegler. I read some of his articles, but very few. Because a lot of them are kind of wacky.
Yeah.
Same with The Verge, right? The problem I have here is that, it's one thing to kill a product because no one's using it. It's another thing to kill a product because you have some strange idea or ideals such as social. That everything has to be social, even if the project was or wasn't working. And I don't know. I mean, first of all, they never made an attempt to really monetize Google Reader other than ads. I mean, they never seriously threw ads in it, right? I mean, if you used a third-party client, you never saw their ads.
Right.
So I feel like they never gave it a chance to make money.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, although Google Ads has an RSS, function to it where you can put ads in your RSS feed using Google Ads, and I would think just increased usage of RSS would then drive more usage of the Google AdWords for RSS, but
maybe, but I
suppose if clients on the other end could strip it out, things like that.
They could strip it out, and more importantly, I think I've read some crazy theories, but really, I think it's pretty simple. Social data is right now more highly valued than just random data. So if they could just add some of this functionality to Google Plus, they'd make more money. And I really do think it's that simple.
I find it so weird that these big companies, like Microsoft, I'm thinking of too, have so much resources and so much money and so many employees, 50,000, 100,000, whatever. It's 75,000, I think, in the case of Google, or 45,000. And they still end up with these bottlenecks of resources where, so the story goes.
Oh, come on. They pulled them off of this. That's not legitimate.
So that's kind of my point, is they claim it was while everybody was working on Google Plus, and now this story that's floating around, it's on The Verge right now. It's on a lot of sites. It's floating around the net that, well, you see, you guys, one of the major reasons we had to get rid of Google Reader was because we'd have to work real hard on making sure it was secure privacy-wise, and we know how important your privacy is, so we just said, since we can't live up to your privacy expectations, we're just going to go ahead and shut it down. That sounds like such a cop-out to me.
Right. You know what it reminds me of? Remember, Google was always the anti-Microsoft. This is exactly what Microsoft used to do and still does. We're going to make a product, and when it doesn't hit some random metric we have in a spreadsheet, we're going to kill it.
I love this, too, because The Verge is quoting a Google source. And listen to what the source says. The Google source says, the Google is trying to position the company so that it stops getting stuck in expensive privacy lawsuits like the 7 million Wi-Fi data slurping case in the U.S. All right, maybe $7 million is fart money, though. So, I mean, when you look at a business that has a lot of moving parts, I don't know if they would do something like this over a $7 million lawsuit. So this crap feels like, and everybody's gonna think I'm a conspiracy theory nut right now, but companies do these controlled leaks to kind of control the story, because these circle jerk blogs will post any tidbit of information they get from these guys, legit or not. They just take it and they run and they build these huge narratives out of it, because the narrative drives page clicks, and anything you can do to move the narrative forward is awesome for them. And so they're running this story, and so now we're building this whole reason when the reality is it's just a bunch of really crappy business reasons that I just, at the end of the day, feel a little betrayed as a user. I feel like I committed myself to that service. I started using it. I actually got other people using it. I sort of built a workflow around it because, I trusted Google, and I believed that would be a long-term investment that I could make, organizing all of that, so that way I have a workflow for getting news for each show. I have a workflow for monitoring my feeds.
Honestly, it's your fault though. Because since you weren't giving them money, they had no obligation to.
Well, but see, if they would have asked, I would have paid.
And that's the problem. And all right, so let's do full disclosure here. I am slowly but surely moving everything I have away from Google, because being the product isn't great. Because what happens when they decide to kill something else I'm currently relying on? Right, and the biggest one is Google Keep. I don't use it. But what if you did? Right? What if, like, Google Keep, you had all your notes in Google Keep and they closed it right down?
Honestly, the most devastating thing, and I don't think it would ever happen, but the most devastating thing for me would be Google Docs.
No, they're making far too much money off Google Docs, and they actually make money on Google Docs they do charge enterprises.
Right. That's why I don't think it'll happen. But Google Docs and Gmail are probably, just at first couple of like user end services that I don't think would ever go away. I don't think things like Webmaster Tools or probably G Plus will ever go away. But
Well, that's
like
the thing.
all
But
the other stuff,
all those productivity services, Google Docs, Gmail, at some point, enterprise customers or business customers are paying for them, and we're all along for the ride and for ad revenue.
and I actually do pay for
And,
the Jupiter Broadcasting account.
as do I. So my Google Earth is probably not long for this world, right?
Google Earth might be a good example. A great example of something that's never going to go away is Maps. But, maybe, who knows, maybe the services around Maps or integration features could go away. You just never know. So I guess I want to, okay, maybe I need to play devil's advocate here because I'm obviously upset about this. But from the devil's advocate standpoint, Google's reasons are their reasons. I mean, just like if I have a reason to end a show, I have my reasons, right?
Right.
And there's usually not any one thing. It's usually a collection of a majority of important things. So they had this collection, this whatever consensus where they had these important things. And one of them was likely, which I completely believe, is it needed a lot of code work and it probably didn't have enough users. And it's a chicken and egg problem. Because they were not nurturing it properly, it began to decline in usage. And of course, they didn't do anything really to kind of keep it moving forward, so they weren't really drawing in new people. So they kind of, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, but that aside, I wish what they could have done is, and maybe this is just pie in the sky, but I wish when Google ends something like this, they would open source as much of the code as they could.
There are tons of reasons why I understand they wouldn't want to do that as a developer. But let's say they open source it, and we find out there's been a flaw there for years that was risking everybody's privacy. How long do you think some lawyer is going to take to get someone to file a lawsuit?
The chat room is pointing out voice.
Yeah, that would suck if voice went. I mean, I don't use voice because I feel the quality isn't there. But.
It's not. It's not. It's compared to a native phone call, there's delays. Sometimes there's echo. But the fact that I can turn off like old clients and things like that, or whatever I need to do, or sometimes my number gets out there. Like when I'm at Linux Fest, I give it out, and I want to be able to later on, if I have to, if somebody's being annoying, turn it off. So I end up using it anyways, and that's kind of important for me. So I would, this is a great example. I have no confidence. Again, when it was Grand Central, I wanted to pay for it. And then when it became Google Voice, I was a little concerned because I couldn't. And they haven't added really any major features. They haven't even added picture messaging now for like 2 or 3 years, even though, So, I have contacts on there. I do all of my text messaging on there. I'm in a bad spot, but what do I do here? See, this is the other problem is I was sort of forced into using Google Reader because all of the client applications synced with Google Reader. So if I wanted to use a nice client app,
it's ironic though, isn't it? Because Google, it's like the old Microsoft 90s problem. Because Google was in the space, no smaller companies wanted to. Because who the hell wants to compete with Google? And that's really what the problem is. Now that Google's left the space, I think we're going to see a lot of awesome, innovative competitors. But it's going to take several months for them to reach market. So you'll have your replacement, and you'll probably have your choice of 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a couple months where you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs.
Yeah, and waiting for all the different apps on the different
Which is good because
platforms.
Google Reader's not dead effective today, right? They are phasing it down.
June, right?
June. So hopefully by June, and I'm sure there are long nights being pulled by some startup that we've never heard of to jump in here. But I'd like to take the 4,000 view, 4,000 miles up view of this.
All right.
I think my issues are more around that, when I started using Google platforms and Google tools, it was a tech search company. Now it's to me, squarely in the advertising social company. And I don't really mind the advertising part. I mind that social part. Right? I don't want, not everything needs to be social. Not every product needs to have social integration. It just doesn't.
Problem is they want social integration because it provides
better signals. Yeah.
Better signals. Yeah, exactly.
But so I've been using Google Plus relatively heavily compared to, I'd say, the general population. I have noticed that now my Google searches are less useful because I keep getting regurgitated Plus comments.
I don't know if I would classify them. Well, I definitely don't want that. Yeah, you're right. You're right, actually. Yeah.
Because, I want the API docs. I want, if I'm doing something in a Microsoft product, I want the MSDN blog post by the guy who wrote it. Right. I don't want the same question I asked on Google Plus and everybody's comment returned to me as a separate entry, a separate search result. And so I've been going to DuckDuckGo just because it's not polluted like that.
Yeah, the results just don't work as good for me. I think maybe I've just learned the Google language or something. DuckDuckGo is okay. I find it to be, usually a little underperforming.
It needs a little work and it can be a little slow. But
maybe I'm just being a curmudgeon.
well, the problem is, especially from posting that indie devs community, if I post something about Rails or Java Play now, the first 5 results are returned as just Google Plus.
Yeah, I really don't like that.
And it's like I can't, I'm just tired of sifting through this. I remember when Stack Overflow was always the first result, and it was great because bam, there's your answer. So I don't know. And Chris, to be fair, DuckDuckGo does have some special commands for searching API docs and programming questions. So it's probably why it's working a little better.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So what I think about, my context of ending something, of killing something,
right.
is in either a job, and I'd like to kind of talk about that a little bit because I have a situation coming up that I'd like to kind of talk to you about because I think maybe killing a contract or a job could be an interesting discussion. And then also my other context is killing shows. And I kind of hate to use the word killing. Yep. It's more like benching them because nothing's really ever dead. But that is very hard because, and I think applications are similar because where you have a user base with an application or Google Reader, absolutely, right?
Yeah, well, I've done that. I've killed applications that people actively use. So I think we could definitely do some real world examples here.
Yeah. Okay. So Stoked was that was a hard one to hit because it seemed in some measurements the show had more downloads than the actual game had players, and what it was is people were watching the show to keep tabs on the game to see if they should come back and play. And I also had this weird sense of hurting the game because literally the show was what people were using to determine to play the game or not. And we actually, confirmed from the devs, we could move the needle. When the show would promote something, they would have an increase in server population. And and I wanted the game to succeed because I loved it and I love Star Trek and all of that. And so not only did I have the disappointment of my audience who loved that show, but I also could potentially negatively impact the game itself. And I think maybe that's to some extent has happened, maybe not, but recently I was contacted by, I won't say who, but people very high up in the company who would like me to return to doing specials about the game to help promote it because they need the promotion. And so obviously, just like people depend on Google Reader like Flipboard does, and Google Reader going away is going to negatively impact Flipboard. It's this weird dual sense of responsibility. Do you follow me at all here?
Yeah, I follow you. I mean, in that specific case, I actually think so. You're worried about a conflict of interest, essentially, right? That's what it sounds like.
It's like almost like a sense of responsibility.
Right, because I'm assuming, and I don't want to open the kimono, but I'm assuming there is some sort of incentive that you've been offered.
I didn't even go that far because it's just not where I'm at anymore. So
next time they call, just forward them to me. And I'll be here. I can co-host that with you, don't worry.
Okay.
No, the thing is, you didn't develop the game, right? Your duty is to the network and to your listeners. So yes, I mean, I like, we're talking about SWOTOR. I like SWOTOR as well. Right? Mm-hmm. We're not talking about SWOTOR, are we?
No. But we'll go like that. I'd rather obfuscate this as much as possible because I didn't get permission to disclose any of this or anything like that.
Let's talk about SWOTOR because I know that game.
Yeah, SWOTOR. Boom. It. Yeah, okay. Which needs help.
Which also needs help.
Yes.
They just fired their CEO. It's one thing to like something as a user. Actually, you have no obligation here, dude.
Well, I really like Star Trek, and I want everything in the Star Trek franchise to do Star Wars. Yeah, I want everything in the Star Wars franchise to do really well. And so, it's just imagine if if
Well, let me ask you: did you kill the show because the listener numbers just weren't doing it right?
well, the listener that was a factor. They weren't enough,
Right.
but also I was running out of runway with the show myself. Right. So
Right. So this actually syncs up with the product I killed. If you get to the point where you would be continuing the product would actually make it a worse product,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
it's time to stop.
See, that's how I felt. That's how I finally was like, I just didn't. Yeah, I didn't feel like I could make it any better anymore. Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
So that is so that answers that. Now so let's shift gears. I have a client. They've been a really good client for more than a year. I visit them at least once a week, sometimes more. Like next week, it's gonna be crazy. It's ridiculous. But they're taking too much of my time, and I'm not getting things done for Jupiter Broadcasting I need to get done. Not only can I not really afford to quit the client, but I kind of hesitate because they've been such a good, reliable client for so long, and they're pretty good people too. But the problem is I have other things that I think I can move forward to generate more revenue long term that I just have to make myself available for. It's like I just have to sit down and do the work. Like AKA, like start an application in this case, it's, start working on a few things behind the scenes here at the network. And I've just got to have that time. So how do you go to somebody, in my case, a client, but it could be an employer who's been great, maybe a little cheap, but great, and say, I'm all done. It's not you, it's me. How do you do that right? And then, ideally, I'd love to not burn that bridge. So that way, if they had a bad week once a month, I could come in and make a few bucks and I could help them out because I'm familiar with their system. So it's a win-win. I don't know. I don't even know how to start that appropriately because usually when my client work wraps up, it's the end of a project and we've all kind of, from the beginning, we've known this is when it's going to be done. And once the work's done.
There's a day, right?
Yeah.
There's a set date.
Right.
And,
this sort of just developed into come in every week and just help us keep things going appropriately, keep things moving smoothly.
So I guess you and I have a different perspective on this.
Okay.
If there is a reason, like if they're paying a lower rate than maybe they should be.
Yeah, they are.
Then because to me it sounds like if the money was correct, the time wouldn't be an issue anymore. Is that fair?
If the money was a little more than correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the time is pretty valuable, right, at this point. It's like, because like I'm losing like evenings and weekends with the to the kids, which is as it should be. And so like the weekdays are becoming like gold.
Yeah. I mean, I would just honestly raise the price till you have less than 40 hours a week of billable hours. Just keep doing that. Right? So if you're charging X, charge X plus 10. And see where that takes you.
Yeah. And then if they just don't move.
The alternative is they'll balk and that'll just end the deal right there. So either way, you probably do fine.
And then just try to handle it so that, I can still... Because I like the idea. I don't know. I question this. But it seems like maybe a good idea to not totally burn that bridge so that way I can like help out from time to time and make a little bit of money on the side.
Yeah, that's definitely the way you want to handle it. Because, one thing is...
How do I know I'm making the right decision? See, I don't feel very confident about this decision. It feels like it's a leap of faith in a sense because I'm leaping from something that generates guaranteed revenue to something that doesn't generate any revenue right now. Will take some time to generate revenue, and even then, I don't know exactly how much. I just hope it could be enough. That seems completely crazy, but there seems like no way to get to that point unless I make that leap.
See, to me, that's... I don't know, I guess I'm a little more conservative than you want to be here, but... to me, it sounds like the real complaint is that you're lower than what your rate should have been. And maybe it made sense at the time. Maybe you needed the deal.
Well, it was sort of a favor.
So that's even worse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now it's time to say, it's been X months. I really can't give you a discount anymore. This is the correct rate. And see where it goes.
Yeah, I guess
because ultimately you can't keep. I mean, this is a mistake I made early on. You can't keep working favor rates for people.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of these things I never ever do, but go figure. Somebody I worked with years and years ago. We used to work together as a team. Calls me back up. See, this is the other problem is I'm splitting revenue with somebody else. That's why it's a lower rate. So there's not a lot of room for them to go up. They could go up probably a little bit, but not much.
Right.
So it's one of these things where it kind of puts him in a bad spot too, because he kind of needs the backup. But I mean,
It's one of those things. It's it's important to separate business from personal,
yeah.
and that's what it sounds like your problem is. And I've done it too. I have a client that I'm very friendly with that was for a long time paying a significantly discounted rate.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I just had to tell him, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, time becomes valuable, and it's one of those things too where it's been good to kind of keep that going for a while, just because like I've always known, well, this day I'm going to generate this much revenue, and that's been nice, and that's just been nice security, and that's I think where a lot of people who are sitting at a desk job thinking, God, I'd love to go out and make my own, sell my own thing or make my own thing or do whatever, but they're sort of comforted by that, what they think is a guaranteed paycheck. But the reality is this client could fire me in a month.
Right, but there's also, and we talked about this in the earlier episodes, if you work for somebody on a W-2 and you do a bad job and they fire you, they still have to pay you, right? They can't not pay you.
Right.
It's against, at least in the United States, it's criminal. It's against the law.
Yeah.
If you're a contractor and they say you do a bad job, they do have to pay you. But they can take 3 months and, waste some of your money with legal arbitration
and
first.
time.
Yeah, and time.
Yeah.
So there are advantages to working for someone as an employee, but in your case, you have none of the advantages. I mean, you're working. It sounds like you're working the lower rate as though you were an employee.
Just about, yeah.
But you're accepting all the risk of being a contractor.
Oh yeah, and at the time, like you said, I was doing it for a friend, or at least a longtime coworker, but also very close to my house, which is so nice in my area because I live about 30, 40 miles north of Seattle. So to have the convenience of somebody who's only like 10 minutes away from my house is very rare. So I was like, well, that's kind of worth a premium too. But that's another thing that I've learned is it doesn't always necessarily make it worth a premium. You think it does at first. You're like, oh man, I'm not going to be in the car.
Yeah.
It's
really not.
Unless the driving is a really, 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 really big deal. But I thought it was.
I mean, the other thing is it's better to, this is my opinion for conflict resolution. If there's a dispute or there's going to be a dispute, have the dispute, right? It's better just to go head on into it, rather than have this drag on for a few more months.
Yeah.
At least that would be my thought. So if you're uncomfortable with the rate, assuming you haven't agreed to keep that rate for another X months, I would just go in and write a letter and say, listen, I was happy to do this for a discount for a time, but can't now.
It kind of makes me wonder if I shouldn't do these things. I don't know. Open. I think maybe part of my mistake too was doing an open-ended agreement. Like maybe I should have done something where every 3 months we kind of sit down and. But see, the problem is it's just so nice to not even have to hassle about that end of the business. Just know that it's going to be like this, and yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem is you negotiated the rate down, not realizing that it was going to last months.
Yeah, you know what? Actually,
what
when I negotiated that rate, I actually thought it was just going to be for a couple of weeks.
Right, you figured up you pick up some cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help out, and it was a particular Linux problem that I knew how to fix. And
no, I've done it too, and then it turns out to be a 6-month gig, and you're making like 20 or 30% under what you should have.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. That's exactly.
Yeah, and it's like, and then the problem is that time is promised already. So when you get other offers at your proper rate, it gets really frustrating.
Well, and what is really hard for me to convince myself when I work for myself. So everything I do is either costing me money or making me money, literally, right? Because that's how it works. And so when I think about the fact that I actually can, if I free myself up and give myself like slack time, like free time in my schedule, that availability then allows me to like think of new ideas, think of new shows, try new concepts out. And like, that's actually where the next sort of innovation for the network comes from, is this time that, downtime. And what I have been doing is I have a show, and then I have a client, and then I have a show, and then everything is stacked very, very tightly together. Or I have 2 shows back to back, and then a client. It's very. I packed every single moment of my day, figuring time is money, and I can't waste any of it. And what I didn't realize is there's actually some inherent value in downtime too. That you have to. I almost want to go as far as say is I almost wish I could leave 20% of my schedule open, just to allow for,
It's
a phone.
my dogs say hello.
A dog barking, to allow for a phone call, to allow for, an afternoon with the kids, whatever. And that is really hard to convince myself of.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, though. I've been thinking along the same lines because my last month has been crazy. And a lot of it has just, tax season, right? A lot of it has been spent in Google Docs. It's been admin time.
Yeah.
Basically, it's been, oh, great, I need to look over the company credit card. Let's make sure I did it right. And I'm realizing that, sure, I met contract obligations for clients. Obviously, all that is fine. But I got nothing else done other than that in admin.
Yeah.
Literally nothing.
Yeah.
I did 1 or 2 code journal updates, and that was it.
Yeah.
The other, super secret projects B, C, and D have had no traction. And I think that's kind of the situation you're in. It's
part of it, what I realized is I had another reoccurring regular say, all right, we're all done at this point, and so thank you very much, and it freed up one of my days, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, it was this landslide of productivity that just hit me in the last couple of weeks. Like, holy crap, I'm getting so much more stuff done with just one more day. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I've been doing things a little wrong. So it's interesting you say that.
Yeah, I've been thinking along the same lines. It's interesting because it's not an easy problem to solve, because you are going to risk the client just saying, well, we can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you're going to have to figure out where you want to go from there.
Right.
But
well, and so there you go. I mean, so I think you nailed it with when do you end a product, and I think that's probably what Google felt like with Google Reader. Maybe they just felt like they were done making it better.
Yeah, I think there's a little different there still, though. Google's evolving into a different type of company than what they were, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're still ultimately going to be, at least for that side of the business, a Linux contractor.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be a social network.
Right. But I'm changing, well, sort of. I'm changing from a Linux contractor into an internet broadcaster, I guess.
True.
I'm changing my business in a sense, and when they started working with me a year ago, I was much more of a contractor than a full-time broadcaster.
True. No, that is true. That's fair enough.
It's an interesting transition to make, because mine can be complementary in some ways, whereas theirs
really doesn't work.
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of the deal is sort of a bigger change, because
I feel like the idea of the best search in the world and social are mutually exclusive. I don't think you can do it.
Brave new world, way of the future. Hey, before we get out of here, I have a pick. Do you mind? Do you mind if I just toss this one in?
Do it live.
All right. So, did you know I have a Note 2? Did you know I got a Note 2?
No, I never heard that.
Yeah, no, I got a brand new Note 2. It has an S Pen built in, and I decided I liked it quite a bit. I don't know if I told you that. And so I got myself a dock, and I wanted to make this pick because there's 2 docks on Amazon. Well, actually, there's 3 docks on Amazon right now. The one I'm going to talk about is the original dock. Now, there is a slightly newer dock by Samsung that's a couple more bucks, and you could check that out if you want. And then there's the Big Mamma Jamma. So I'm going to link to the Big Mamma Jamma and the little dock. The little dock is nice because you just put your phone in there, and it's just a holder. It doesn't wirelessly charge or anything. But it's a holder, and then the back opens up, and you put your secondary battery in there if you have one, and it charges your secondary battery in there all the time. So you can keep it in there just kind of nice and cozy, which is really handy because I can just, since the back pops right off, I just put one in the charger, close it, and then I always just have a full battery ready to go. I like that now. So that's pretty cool. I also, and by the way, you see, you mock Bitcoin, sir, but all of these were paid for with Bitcoin. But
Bitcoin.
That's a whole nother show. So then I got this smart dock because I realized the one I just recommended doesn't charge the phone itself, just the spare battery. But the smart dock, this is really cool if you have a Note 2. Now this is not cheap. This is $115. This is a big boy toy, and I don't know if I could actually justify the price if I were you. But anyways, it has HDMI and sound out on the back, and it has several, I think 3 USB ports, which you can hook up a keyboard, mouse, and a USB thumb drive to. When you put the phone in the dock, the keyboard, the mouse, and the HDMI all light up, and you get display out, You get full mouse and keyboard on your phone, and you can also utilize the USB thumb drive storage. The other thing that's just nice about this smart dock is it actually also has a charger. So when your phone's in there, it's also charging. So it's a dock that also charges it, which is pretty cool. Even if you just used, mostly I just use the audio out and the charging portion, but I do kind of like using the thumb drive system too. So anyways, I'll have both those in the show notes if you have a Note 2, and I don't know if they work with some of the Galaxy with the S3. I'm not sure. Those are really the two docks that I got. I tried them out, and I can give them a hearty recommendation. And if you grab those in the show notes, they will support the show. And don't forget, we also have links at the bottom of the website where you click on one of those for like Amazon or ThinkGeek or Newegg or Best Buy. It'll automatically tag your shopping session. So a portion of that supports the network, helps cover our bandwidth costs, and keeps poor unemployed Chris out of the poorhouse. And then, of course, we also have those browser extensions, too. You grab those browser extensions, and it automatically will tag your shopping session. And, Mr. Dominic, we have an extension coming for you Safari users pretty soon, too.
I don't use Safari.
Oh!
Good try, though.
Did I slip that in there? Oh, and you know what? I should give a mention to coderradio.reddit.com.
Yeah, our beautiful subreddit that we just found out about.
It's so cool. Yeah, like the author hit me up on G+, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot I made that. And you know what? I'm glad it's doing well. So go over to coderradio.reddit.com. I will now start putting the episode in there so you can leave comments. People left comments on the last week's episode, Mr. Dominic. And then,
oh no!
Look at this. This is interesting. So there's a self-feedback thread in here about devs trolling for app ratings. There's several suggestions in here for the show. We're gonna have to start looking at this. You know what? We'll start checking this out during the pre-show if I remember, because there's some good topics in here. This is awesome.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at it this morning. Actually, I commented on the trolling for app ratings.
Oh, good man.
Thing.
Good man. Look at you. You're already ahead of me. Already ahead of the game. Well, very good. Nice. So you can go to, again, coderradio.reddit.com and go join that community. It's just getting started, so it's a good time to get in there. And we'll start tipping you with Bitcoins. Wait, no. I'm kidding. All right, Mr. Dominic, is there anything else you want to cover before we get out of here?
No, that's it. Let's keep it nice and tight this weekend. Talk to you guys next week. Send in show topic suggestions.
Yeah, email us, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com, or use the contact form at the top of the Jupiter Broadcasting site, or heck, start a thread in the subreddit over at coderradio.reddit.com. And of course, people could always check out your blog, right, Mr. Dominic? Which is at...
Indeed, they could find it at blog.mdominic.com. And Chris, you would love the most recent post.
Oh yeah, what was it?
Why I like WinRT.
I'll have to go check that out.
Hang on, what did I title it? It's more trolly. Oh, I like Windows RT. That's
very nice. All right, everyone. Well, you can find links to our social profiles, links to his blog, and all that stuff in the show notes. Don't forget to join us live Mondays, 9 a.m., noon Eastern over at jblive.tv. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week.